Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're going into some really perplexing territory. We're talking about those real-world mysteries. The ones that just remain stubbornly unexplained. Cases that really challenge what we think we know.
Yeah, they push the limits of our understanding, really.
Our journey today pulls from, a bunch of different sources detailing some truly unsettling cases. So get ready for some surprising facts, details that honestly just defy easy answers.
Absolutely. And our goal here isn't just to, list off disturbing events. It's more about finding those key bits of information, understanding why these cases keep fascinating us, and, let's be honest, frustrating us too. They force us to question things.
Assumptions about reality, about justice.
Exactly. Even about our own bodies sometimes. We're looking for those moments that make you go, aha. Even if the ultimate solution, the final answer, stays just out of reach.
Okay, let's start with one that's just profoundly disturbing. The discovery of 18-year-old Joshua Maddox. In 2015, his body was found inside the chimney of a cabin. And the really chilling part, this cabin was only 2 blocks from his dad's house in Woodland Park, Colorado.
Wow. 2 blocks.
Yeah, he'd been missing since 2008. Told his dad he was just going for a walk. Never came back. People described him as, smart, funny, a good kid.
Just vanish.
And then, like that, 7 years later, officially his death was ruled an accident. The theory was he tried to get into the cabin through the chimney, got stuck, and died there.
Right, but that official ruling, it starts to fall apart pretty quickly when you dig into the details. First off, the clothing, or lack thereof.
Yeah.
When they found Josh, he was only wearing a thermal shirt. Nothing from the waist down. No shoes, no pants, no underwear.
So, if you're trying to break into a cabin through a chimney, are you really doing it half naked?
It seems unlikely, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Especially if you're trying to be discreet. Then there's the cabin itself. The owner said it had been abandoned for, 10 years. He did mention noticing a rancid smell building up over time.
Oh, God.
Yeah, but he just figured it was dead rats or something. But critically, he also said a large piece of furniture was blocking the fireplace opening.
From the inside.
Exactly. Making it, in his words, impossible for rats or a person to get through from inside the room into the fireplace.
Okay.
And maybe the biggest thing, the owner specifically said he'd had metal bars installed at the top of the chimney.
To keep animals out.
Right, and if those bars could keep out squirrels or raccoons, well, the owner felt they would have made it effectively impossible for Joshua to do so from the outside.
So wait, if he couldn't get in from the top because of the bars, and couldn't have squeezed out from the bottom into the room because of the furniture,
Right.
that implies he must have already been inside the cabin somehow.
Yeah.
And was maybe trying to crawl up into the fireplace.
Yeah.
Only to get trapped by the furniture from below.
That's the implication. It completely flips the accidental entry idea on its head.
So how did he get inside? And why?
Well, this is where another name comes up. Andrew Richard Newman, known as Andy. There was an interesting online post from someone who apparently knew both Andy and Josh. They said Josh was last seen with Andy, who was talking about taking a trip to New Mexico.
Okay. And who is this Andy?
Well, his history is disturbing.
Yeah.
He was linked to a stabbing death in New Mexico, a disabled man. Andy apparently vanished after the caretaker stepped away for a moment.
Oh, wow.
He was arrested later. He even apparently claimed to have killed a woman and put her body in a barrel, though police had another suspect for that one.
So a violent past.
Definitely seems that way. Cases against him were eventually dropped, though. Lack of evidence, witnesses dying, that sort of thing.
Right.
And here's the really chilling part related to Josh. People reported hearing rumors that Andy was bragging.
Bragging about what?
About having, quote, put Josh in a hole.
Jesus. Did anyone tell the police?
Friends tried. They really tried to alert the police about Andy, about the connection, but apparently their calls mostly went unreturned. And get this, somehow, the missing person bulletin for Josh got canceled by mistake. It stated he was alive and well.
No.
You're kidding.
While his body was decomposing in that chimney.
That's unbelievable negligence. And what did the coroner finally say?
Well, you found that quote, right? It's just astounding.
Yeah, let me read it again. It's just... I know it's not a natural death, and I'm confident it's not a suicide. My other options are an accidental death homicide and undetermined cause of death. It's frustrating we can't pin it down.
So, it's not natural, not suicide.
Yeah.
Options are accident, homicide, undetermined.
So your options are accidental homicide and undetermined, but you just can't seem to pin it down. You're telling me it's almost as though you were unable to determine the cause of death. Well, in that case, everybody knows that accidental is the way to go.
It sounds like throwing your hands up, doesn't it? Just picking the easiest box to tick. It really does.
Yeah.
Accidental seems like the least likely explanation given everything else.
Exactly. And looking at the bigger picture, the whole thing just screams lack of accountability. The cabin gets demolished, Josh's body is cremated. Andy, despite his history and the rumors, is never questioned about Josh.
So, no real answers for the family.
None. It makes you think about how easily evidence can disappear, how leads can be ignored, and how the truth about what happened to someone can just vanish.
Okay, let's shift gears. From a physical mystery like that to one that's been playing out online. For years, this is the very strange case of Chip Chan.
Ah, yes, Chip Chan.
For something like 13 years now, this woman in South Korea has kept a 247 live stream running in her apartment.
Yeah.
She almost never leaves.
It's quite something to tune into.
Mostly, you'll just see her.
Yeah.
Well, passed out, often in a corner of the room on the screen. Or just sleeping. For incredibly long periods.
Yeah, reports say like 20 hours a day sometimes.
And when she is awake, sometimes she just screams. The name Chip Chan came from users on 4chan who found the stream. It relates to her own claim, actually.
Her claim about having a very chip inside her.
Exactly. And because there's no audio on the stream, her way of communicating is unique.
Handwritten notes, she sticks them right up to the camera lens.
What kind of things does she write?
All sorts. Some are sort of general warnings like, stop deceiving me, internet, or don't get tricked, don't get fooled. But then there are much more specific and frankly disturbing claims.
Like what?
Things like Stalker P breaks in after disabling the camera. Or this one. Korean cop PE makes me lose my consciousness at any time, so I always sleep on the chair for years.
A Korean cop named P, or PE, and he makes her lose consciousness.
That's her core allegation. She believes she's being held captive by this dirty cop, P. She claims he wants control of some inherited money she supposedly has.
Ham the chip.
She believes P implanted this very chip in her ankle, and he uses it to control her sleep, to basically knock her out for hours.
Okay, that's a lot to take in. What do other people think is going on?
Well, the obvious counter theories involve mental health, maybe schizophrenia, maybe something like narcolepsy.
But do those fit?
Not perfectly. I mean, think about severe paranoia, often associated with schizophrenia. Would someone like that really broadcast themselves 24/7? It seems counterintuitive.
Good point.
And narcolepsy usually involves sudden, short sleep attacks, right? Not sleeping for 20 hours straight, day after day.
True. So those theories don't quite explain the specifics.
Not fully. And then there are the weird things people have observed on the stream itself.
Like what?
Well, sometimes the feed just goes dark. Black screen. This often happens when she claims P is visiting or interfering. It can last minutes or even hours. And people have recorded footage where, while she's clearly asleep in her chair, the lights in her apartment turn on and off repeatedly, on their own.
Okay, that is strange.
It really is. So, what's the truth? Is she genuinely being held captive, controlled somehow? Or is this a tragic public display of a severe mental health crisis? Neither explanation seems to cover all the facts, you know? It leaves you, the viewer, in this really uncomfortable position.
Yeah, watching someone potentially suffer, but having no way to know what's real.
Exactly. Yeah. It highlights how weirdly intimate, yet also obscure online life can be. You see so much, but understand so little.
Let's move on to another disappearance. Completely different circumstances, but just as unsettling. Andrew Gosden. Back in 2007, Andrew was 14 years old, a mathematical genius living in Doncaster, England.
Gifted student, right. Perfect attendance.
Exactly. By all accounts, a happy kid, normal life, no obvious problems, left notes for his mom if he was just popping out, really seemed squared away. But on the day he vanished, his behavior was completely off. Totally out of character. He left for school like normal, but didn't get on the bus. He waited nearby until his parents left for work.
So he deliberately skipped school?
Yes. Then he went back home, changed out of his school uniform. Crucially, he put the uniform in the washing machine.
Washed his uniforms, yeah.
Changed into jeans and a Slipknot t-shirt. Then he went to the bank and withdrew all his money, about 200 pounds.
All of it?
All of it.
Yeah.
And then went straight to the train station and bought a one-way ticket to London.
One way, not a return.
One way. Even though apparently a return ticket only costs like 50 pence more. The only thing he took with him, besides the clothes he was wearing, was his handheld game console, a PSP.
Okay.
But here's the kicker. He didn't take the charger for it?
No charger, so That suggests a short trip, right? A battery only lasts so long.
You'd think so,
Oh.
but he bought a one-way ticket and washed his uniform. These just don't fit together.
They really don't. It's a bundle of contradictions. One-way ticket implies not coming back. Washing the uniform implies you will need it again. Taking a PSP without a charger suggests a short trip. But he never returned.
And there was no digital footprint either.
None whatsoever. He didn't have a mobile phone, didn't use email, police checked his computers at home, nothing. No evidence he'd arranged to meet anyone.
Just decided to go to London, seemingly on a whim, but with these weirdly specific actions.
Precisely. And the trail just died.
Where was he last seen?
CCTV got him arriving at King's Cross Station in London. Big, busy station. But after that, nothing.
Why? No more cameras.
The frustrating thing is, footage from nearby cameras, which might have shown where he went next, had apparently already been deleted by the time police requested it. Routine deletion, probably, but disastrous for the investigation.
So King's Cross is the last confirmed sighting.
Yeah, and the mystery just deepens from there. There were other odd things.
Like what?
Well, his favorite band, Muse, happened to be playing a concert in London that same night.
Where did he go?
His dad actually went down to London, searched around the venue, hoping to spot him. But no luck, no trace.
Wow. Anything else?
There was this strange incident later on. An unidentified man walked into a police station somewhere and told the officer on duty he had information about Andrew Gosden.
Really? What did he say?
That's the thing. Before a proper officer could come and take down the details, the man just left, vanished, never identified.
That's incredibly frustrating. Could have been crucial.
Could have been. And one more thing. His parents, understandably desperate, considered the possibility he might have faked his own disappearance. Like a character in a TV show he apparently liked.
So what did they do?
Hoping he might need money eventually, they put some funds into his bank account, the one he'd emptied. It was never touched. Not a penny withdrawn.
So it just leaves so many questions. Why did he do it? Why London? What was the plan? Who was that man at the police station?
And the biggest one, of course. Is he still alive somewhere, or did something happen to him in London?
It's just emptiness for the family, isn't it? No clues, no closure.
Absolutely. Andrew Gosden's case is a perfect, painful example of how someone can just make choices that seem completely illogical from the outside. Calculated choices, it seems, but defying any rational explanation we can come up with, leaving loved ones in limbo for years, decades now.
A truly baffling disappearance. Okay, let's shift to a case that involves celebrity, but is no less tragic and mysterious. The death of Scott Ruffalo, the brother of actor Mark Ruffalo.
Right, this was back in 2008.
Scott, a well-known hairstylist, was found in his Beverly Hills condo. He'd been shot in the head.
A terrible discovery. What was the initial story?
The initial report was bizarre. It was presented as possibly a game of Russian roulette gone wrong.
Russian roulette? Seriously?
Yeah. The story involved two other people who were there. Shahar Michelle Adam, the press, called her the Saudi princess, and her boyfriend, Brian Schofield. Both were known drug users, apparently.
Okay, so what did they say happened?
Shahar's story was that they were just there to pick up some keys. She heard a gunshot while looking for them, found Scott bleeding on the floor, panicked, and they both left.
Left him there?
That was her claim. But the police investigation quickly changed direction.
How so?
Just over a week later, police announced they were treating it as a homicide, not an accident or suicide. They said the angle of the bullet made this an impossibility for it to be self-inflicted, even in a game like Russian roulette.
Forensic evidence contradicting the story.
Exactly. So both Shahar Adam and Brian Schofield became official persons of interest.
Were they charged?
No, that's the thing. Despite being persons of interest, neither was ever charged in connection with Scott's death. The case just went cold.
Wow. So, ruled a homicide, two people present become persons of interest, but nothing happens.
Pretty much. And then there's another twist.
Go on.
4 years after Scott died, Shahar Adam, the key witness, was found dead herself. She was only 29.
How does she die?
Officially, it was listed as a suspected overdose.
Right. So with her gone.
The investigation, which was already cold, pretty much died along with her, as some reports put it.
So we're left wondering, was it actually some twisted game that went horribly wrong, or was there something more calculated?
Yeah, was it something more malicious going on in Brian's mind, as some have speculated?
And you have to ask, though it's pure speculation, did Brian have anything to do with Shahar's death later? Did she become a liability? We just don't know.
It's incredibly frustrating, isn't it? A clear homicide ruling, key witnesses identified, and yet no resolution. The truth just seems buried.
It really highlights how cases can stall and die when witnesses disappear or evidence isn't strong enough for charges, even when things seem suspicious.
Mark Ruffalo spoke about the grief years later. It was quite moving.
What did he say?
He said, "You never get over it. You just get used to it. You get calloused a little bit harder maybe, but take these tragic things and turn them into something meaningful and worthy of the loss. Make it count."
Powerful words. Turning tragedy into meaning.
Okay, for our final case, we're diving into a medical mystery. This one is so strange, it actually inspired an episode of The X-Files.
Ah, the toxic lady, Gloria Ramirez.
That's the one. This happened in 1994. Gloria Ramirez was rushed to Riverside General Hospital in California. She was suffering from late-stage cervical cancer and was very confused. Her heart rate was high, blood pressure dropping.
Okay, standard emergency situation so far.
Yes, but things quickly got weird. In the ER, after they gave her sedatives and started treatment, staff noticed an unusual oily sheen appearing all over her body.
Oily sheen.
Yeah. And along with it, a strange smell, described as fruity and garlic-like.
Fruity and garlic. That's an odd combination.
Isn't it? Then a nurse drew some blood, and the blood itself seemed wrong.
How so?
It reportedly smelled like ammonia, and there were small white particles, like crystals, floating in the blood sample.
White particles in the blood. Okay, that's definitely not normal.
Not at all. And right after noticing this, that nurse felt lightheaded and fainted.
Fainted, just from drawing the blood.
Apparently. Then a medical resident took a look at the syringe with the blood, smelled it, felt extremely nauseated, and she fainted too.
2 people down.
Then a respiratory therapist who was assisting also passed out. It was like dominoes.
Oh my God.
One after another, ER staff who came near Gloria or her blood sample started feeling sick, fainting, having trouble breathing. It caused chaos.
I can imagine.
Eventually, they had to evacuate all patients from the ER to the parking lot because of what they called Gloria's supposedly toxic blood.
We evacuated the entire ER.
Yes. In total, 23 people reported becoming ill after exposure, and 5 of them had to be hospitalized. Gloria sadly was pronounced dead after about 45 minutes of resuscitation efforts.
Unbelievable. What was causing it? What was the explanation?
Well, the initial explanation floated was mass hysteria, suggesting it was psychological, stress-induced.
But people were fainting, physically collapsing. That sounds like more than hysteria.
Exactly. And that theory was pretty quickly dismissed, especially because the medical resident who fainted the second one suffered serious long-term effects.
Oh, really? Like,
She later developed hepatitis and a vascular necrosis, basically. Bone tissue death due to lack of blood supply in her knees. That's serious physical damage. Couldn't be just psychological.
definitely not. So, if not mass hysteria, what was the leading theory?
The most prominent theory, though it's still debated, involves something called DMSO, dimethyl sulfoxide.
DMSO, what's that?
It's an industrial solvent, a degreaser, but it's also sometimes used, kind of off-label, as a topical home remedy for pain. It penetrates the skin really easily.
Okay, how does that connect?
The theory is that Gloria might have been using DMSO cream on her skin for cancer pain. That could potentially explain the oily sheen, and maybe the garlic-like smell DMSO can cause that.
All right, plausible so far. Then what?
The theory goes that the paramedics gave her oxygen, and then in the ER they used a defibrillator on her. The combination of the oxygen and the electrical shocks might have converted the DMSO accumulating in her body into other chemicals.
Like what?
Specifically into dimethyl sulfate, or DMSO4, which is a highly toxic poisonous gas. And that gas escaping from her blood and her body could have caused the staff's symptoms.
Wow, a chemical reaction inside her body creating poison gas.
That's the theory. It sounds like something out of science fiction, doesn't it?
It really does. Does that theory hold up?
Well, it has problems, significant holes, as even experts admit. Firstly, Gloria's family strongly denied she ever used DMSO. They were adamant about it.
Okay, that's a big contradiction.
It is. And secondly, when her body was eventually released for independent autopsy, there were major issues.
Like what?
Her organs had apparently been contaminated during the initial county autopsy, and her body was already too badly decomposed by the time the family's pathologist got it to draw any firm conclusions about DMSO or its byproducts.
So the physical evidence was compromised or gone?
Pretty much. Even top medical experts who favor the DMSO theory admit it has notable holes. They basically call it the best explanation they could come up with, or maybe the most scientific, but not definitive.
So it's a best guess, but not a proven answer.
Exactly. It's genuinely terrifying, isn't it?
Yeah.
A medical event that sickened nearly 24 people, killed the patient, and we still don't have a solid, confirmed explanation for why.
It really makes you think. Like the other cases, Gloria Ramirez's story just underscores the limits of our knowledge. Sometimes the evidence is lost or decomposes or gets contaminated. Sometimes the explanations we come up with are just the best we can do, but still flawed. It's a humbling reminder that even with science, some things might just remain mysteries, the truth buried too deep to uncover.
What an incredible set of stories we've covered today. Just really makes you think. These 5 cases, the perplexing, the seemingly impossible, and that deep frustration of just not knowing. They're really something.
They are.
And even if we don't get the final answers, looking into these mysteries, it does offer, I think, real insights into thinking critically, questioning assumptions.
And just how slippery the truth can be sometimes. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What does it mean when, despite all the weird details, all the contradictions, the official explanation ends up being accidental or undetermined?
Like with Joshua Maddox.
Exactly. How do we deal with that gap between the official story and what seems, well, obvious, or at least highly suspicious, to an outsider looking in? How do we accept that some puzzles just might not get solved, that the full story might just be lost forever?
It's definitely something to keep thinking about long after you stop listening. Thank you so much for joining us on this exploration of the unexplained today. We really appreciate you tuning in.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
And if you found these stories as compelling as we did, please do consider liking this, sharing it, and maybe subscribing to our channel, Horror Docs. We'll be back with more deep dives into the unknown.